Have you ever told a story in English and felt like you were sounding like a broken record? You keep saying, and then before that, at the same time. It feels flat, doesn't it? You know the events were exciting or stressful, but your words make them sound simple and robotic. The difference between an intermediate speaker and the fluent, sophisticated speaker often comes down to how they manipulate time. Today, I'm not just going to teach you grammar, I'm going to give you the exact tools to make your stories sound professional, organized, and captivating. We are moving beyond the basics to build real, natural flow. Intro. Hello and welcome, and I'm so glad you are here with me today. Whether you are listening to this while commuting, cooking, or sitting down with a notebook, you are in the right place to upgrade your English. This session is dedicated to one thing: time. But I'm not talking about future perfect continuous tense or complex grammar charts. I'm talking about the vocabulary of time, those small, powerful linking words that tell the listener exactly when things happened and how events connect. We are going to master expressions like prior to, subsequently, earlier on, and simultaneously. These might sound formal, but native speakers use them constantly, in business meetings, in emails, and yes, even when gossiping with friends about a crazy week. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to take a chaotic series of events and turn them into a clear, articulate story. Section 1. The power of prior to. I want you to imagine a situation where your life changes overnight. You go from a calm, easy routine to absolute chaos. To describe that change, you could use the word before. You could say, before last week, my life was calm. That's correct, it works. But if you want to add weight to that statement, if you want to sound reflective and sophisticated, you should use the phrase prior to. Prior to simply means before. However, it carries a tone of distance. It draws a line in the sand. You often see videos online with titles like "Stop saying before" and "after." And while I don't think you should ever stop using simple words entirely, upgrading to prior to changes the vibe of your sentence. Let's look at a case study. Imagine a man named Lucas. He's had a stressful week because his manager suddenly quit and he was thrown into a leadership role. Describing his life, he says, "Prior to last week, my life was actually quite calm." Do you hear the difference? If he said before last week, it sounds casual. Prior to last week sounds like he is analyzing the situation. It emphasizes that the now is very different from the then. You can use this in your own life. Think about a major change you've experienced. Maybe you moved to a new country. When people ask you about your experience, instead of saying, "Before I moved to the UK, I lived in Spain," try saying, "Prior to moving to the UK, I had only ever lived in my hometown." It tells your listener that you are entering a new chapter. It's excellent for job interviews, too. You might write in a cover letter, "Prior to my current role, I worked as a customer service advisor." It sounds professional, polished, and serious. Section 2. The timeline builder. Previously. Now, let's move to a word that is very similar, but has a slightly different flavor. That word is previously. If prior to is about contrast and distance, previously is about the timeline. It's a neutral, organized way to say before this. It's less stiff than prior to, making it perfect for everyday conversation or storytelling when you need to give some background context. Think of it as giving your listener a little window into the past so they understand the present. Let's go back to our friend Lucas. He suddenly had to take charge of a project. He explained his insecurity by saying, "Previously, I had only ever done small support tasks." He's setting the scene. He's saying, "Here is the context. You need to understand why I am stressed now." I use this word constantly when talking about my career or life changes. For example, if you're a teacher now, but you had a different career before, you could say, "Previously, I worked in retail sales. Now I focus on education." It bridges the gap between your past and your present, without sounding overly formal. It's also incredibly common in media. You've probably heard podcasts or TV shows start with a recap saying, "Previously on this show." It's the standard way to catch people up. Let's try a more descriptive example. Imagine you moved from a quiet village to a bustling metropolis. You could describe the shock to your system like this. "Previously, my mornings were quiet, just birds and trees. Now, it's traffic, sirens, and takeaway coffee." See how previously sets up that comparison perfectly? It creates a clean break between the past state and the current state. Section 3. The short-term past. Earlier on. So we have covered the big life changes. But what about the small stuff? What about things that happened just this morning or 10 minutes ago? For that, we use the phrase earlier on. This is your go-to phrase for the short-term past. It's casual, friendly, and specific. It usually implies earlier today or earlier in this specific process. Let's look at Lucas again. He's having a terrible week. He tells his friend Nora, "Earlier on, I had to explain the full project plan to the whole team and I was shaking." He doesn't mean last year, he means a few hours ago. Earlier on is fantastic for those mini stories we tell our friends. Let me give you a personal example. Imagine I tried to bake a banana cake this morning. I was feeling great, proud of myself, but then I took it out of the oven and it was hard as a rock. I realized I forgot the baking powder. I would tell you that story by saying, "Earlier on, I tried to bake a cake and it was a total disaster." Or maybe you had a chaotic morning with your pet. You could say, "Earlier on, my dog managed to open the back door and escape into the garden covered in mud." It anchors the story in the recent past. You can even use it in emails to reference a previous conversation. As I mentioned earlier on in our meeting, it's polite, professional, but not stiff. Section 4. Identity and history. Formerly. Let's shift gears to a word that deals with identity. When names, titles, or functions change, we use the word formerly. This word essentially means in the past, but not anymore. We use it almost exclusively for things that have changed their official status. This could be a building that used to be something else, a person who changed their job title, or a company that changed its name. In the story of Lucas and Nora, Nora mentions her new apartment. She says, "Formerly, it was a bakery. Every morning, it still smells like cinnamon rolls." She is describing the building's past identity. It's much more elegant than saying, "It used to be a bakery." You will hear this in news reports and formal introductions all the time. For example, "This is Mr. Lewis, formerly the head of marketing." It respects the position they held while acknowledging they have moved on. I like using this for career paths because it sounds very accomplished. "I am now an English teacher, formerly a software developer." It suggests that the previous role was a significant chapter of your life, not just a random job. Or think about your own town. Is there a cinema that used to be a theater? Is there a trendy cafe that used to be a pharmacy? You can point to it and say, "That cafe was formerly a chemist." It paints a picture of history and change. Section 5. The waiting game. In the meantime. Now, let's look at the space between events. You know that feeling when you are waiting for something to happen and you need to fill the time? That specific gap is called the meantime, and the expression we use is in the meantime. This is one of the most useful phrases for productivity and logistics. It connects now with a future event. Lucas, in our story, is overwhelmed with work. His friend Nora asks him, "What are you doing in the meantime?" Meaning, what are you doing while all this other chaos is unfolding? Lucas replies that he's just trying to hold it together. But let's apply this to a real-world scenario. Let's say your car breaks down. You take it to the mechanic and they tell you it will be ready in 2 hours. You're stuck. You can't go home. So what do? You might say, "In the meantime, I'll go for a walk, grab a coffee, and read a book." You are occupying the space between dropping off the car and picking it up.
I use this constantly in a work setting. If you are working on a team project and waiting for a colleague to finish their part, you don't just sit there. You say, "In the meantime, I will start preparing the next activity." It shows initiative. It shows you know how to manage your time. It's a great phrase to reassure people that you are staying busy while waiting for a result. Section 6. Managing chaos. Simultaneously. Finally, we arrive at the ultimate multitasking word, simultaneously. Life rarely happens one thing at a time. Often, everything happens at once. When two or more events occur at the exact same time, we say they happen simultaneously. This is a step up from saying at the same time. It's precise. It's often used in the context of advanced English conversation time expressions to show complexity and coordination. Lucas was dealing with a new promotion at work. At the exact same moment, Ellie was preparing for a trip to Berlin. He had to pack suitcases, book flights, and run a project all at once. Nora asks him, "So everything is happening simultaneously?" And yes, it was. Imagine a weekend where you are trying to cook dinner, help your child with homework, and answer urgent work emails. Your brain feels like it is splitting in 3 directions. You can say, "I was doing everything simultaneously." In professional contexts, this word is very powerful. A news report might say, "The 2 world leaders spoke simultaneously at the event." Or a company might announce, "We are launching 2 products simultaneously, one in Europe and one in Asia."
It implies a high level of activity. If simultaneously feels a bit too long or difficult to pronounce in casual conversation, you can stick with at the same time. But mastering simultaneously definitely polishes your English and makes you sound more articulate, especially in writing or formal presentations. Conclusion and recap. So, let's look back at the toolkit we have built today. We have prior to for when you want to emphasize a significant change or sound formal about the past. We have previously to set a timeline and give background context. We have earlier on for those casual short-term stories about things that happen today. We have formerly to discuss past identities, job titles, or building uses. We have in the meantime to describe what you do while you're waiting. And we have simultaneously for when life gets crazy and everything happens at once. Using these words does more than just make you sound smart. It clarifies your thinking. It helps your listener follow your story without getting lost. It transforms a rambling explanation into a structured narrative. I want you to try using just one of these today. Maybe send a text using earlier on, or write an email using prior to. Small changes in vocabulary lead to massive changes in fluency. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you feel more confident about managing time in your conversations. If you found value in this session and want to keep refining your speaking skills, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe to English Glow for more lessons that help you shine in English. I'll see you in the next video.